Well, I am very interested in the receiver end of things, as you might imagine. I am an audiologist. But I'm also very interested in speech perception. You know, we all are very familiar with both of those things because most of us do those day in and day out. It's how most of us communicate. So I thought that I would talk a little bit about how speech is actually produced and then talk a little bit about some of the amazing, truly amazing features of our auditory systems. An underappreciated part of our anatomy, I will tell you. So when we produce speech, you all know we have vocal cords and all that stuff, and they're sitting there flapping back and forth. And however fast they move back and forth, that really creates the pitch of our voice. But if we put a microphone, if we could put a microphone just above the vocal cords and measured, we wouldn't really hear speech. What we would hear is a buzz. The speech comes about because the sound is then sent through our vocal tract, and the way that we shape our throat, our tongue, our oral cavity, etc., gives us the various vowel sounds, e, a, u, and also the consonant sounds, t, p, m. Throw the nasal cavity in there for a few sounds, too. And so that is actually called the source filter theory of speech production. As I like to tell my students, consider that a nice piece of cocktail party information. So, okay. Well, then the question is, gets to our ears, what happens there? When we hear not only speech, but when we hear any sounds, sound travels through the outer ear as acoustic energy. It hits the eardrum, and then it's converted to mechanical energy, and it traverses the three middle ear bones, malleus, incus, and stapes is the official names, but you might have heard of, I'm going to forget, hammer, anvil, and stirrup. And I also tell my students, once you've taken your first class in our department, you're not allowed to call them that anymore because that's not the professional names. But it's mechanical energy, and then that energy goes into the inner ear, which is actually filled with fluid. And so once that energy travels through the middle ear as mechanical energy, it becomes hydromechanical energy because there's fluid and tissue in the cochlea, which is the hearing portion of our inner ear. The cochlea, we are finding out, not me personally, but we are finding out more and more about cochlear function every day. And the cochlea is laid out rather like a piano keyboard with the high pitches at one end, and it goes down to the lower pitches at the other end. The cochlea actually is a spiral. It's not laid out flat. And I've talked to a few people about that, physicians and other Ph.D.s, and we all think it might just be a space-saving device. We're not really sure why it's that way, but it doesn't matter. It could be laid out flat. It doesn't matter that it's in a spiral because it works the same way. Well, most of the sounds that we hear are not single pitches. If any of you have ever had a hearing eval, you know that lovely part, beep, beep. That's not the real world, of course. And so voices, any sounds, have just a ton of different frequencies. When those sounds reach the cochlea, what happens is they travel, the different pitches in the sound will travel to different points along the cochlea where it actually matches impedance and they match frequency. And then those sounds are sent to the 8th cranial nerve, the vestibuloacoustic nerve, and then are sent up to the brain for processing. Along the way is an amazing amount of processing that happens. Let's see, what else? Well, I'll just tell you about some of the things. One of the things that when people come in for a hearing evaluation, probably one of the most common complaints we hear is, number one, people are mumbling, right? If they would just speak more clearly. Well, that's probably true. A lot of us do mumble. But that's almost a sure sign that, probably something's going on in your ear, too. But the other big complaint is background noise. And so if you're one-on-one, if you're in a quiet setting, not a problem. once you get in a crowd or you're in a restaurant, then you have trouble understanding the speech. It's not that you don't know speech is going on, you just can't quite make it out. Well, part of that is because in addition to being laid out like a piano keyboard, the cochlea really acts pretty much like a filter bank. And in the normal ear, you know, an ear without damage, those filters are fairly narrow, and so the sound of interest will go through, but not much background noise can get through to try to cover that sound up. When someone develops hearing loss in the cochlea, one thing that happens is that what we call the critical band actually gets wider. So you can think about it, the filter is increasing. So in addition to the sound of interest going through, there's also a lot more noise that can get through and helps cover up. And so that is a big part of what's happening when people have trouble understanding in background noise. Luckily, if you watch what someone is saying, you get a lot more information. And that's because if we have auditory visual input for speech, that 1 + 1 = 4, right? So it's not a simple addition. You get way more information with both of those. And I'll stop there.